My name is Isabella Gray. Sounds fancy, doesn't it? It used to be printed proudly in the Gray family registry until they crossed it out without a word. 7 years ago, I walked out of that house with nothing but a suitcase and a shredded sense of dignity. They thought I'd disappear for good. But I didn't vanish. I transformed. And now I'm back. Not to ask for a place at their table, but to show them I am the earthquake they tried to bury. It wasn't a call to reconnect. It was a call to serve. Just like old times. The sunlight drenched my apartment in a gold that felt almost cruel. It spilled across the marble floors, softened the sharp edges of my furniture, kissed the rim of my espresso cup. If you walked in right now, you'd think peace lived here. But peace didn't take phone calls like this. I held the phone an inch from my ear, as if distance could filter out the sugar in her voice. Darling, Valerie cooed, your sister's big day is almost here. It would mean so much if you could lend a hand. You always had a knack for details, didn't you? Not Isabella, not sweetheart, not even a forced my daughter. Just you. Just a hand. Just history repeating itself. Which part of the day would you like me to lend a hand with? I asked flatly. Serving the guests or shining the champagne flutes? A short pause on her end. Not long enough to be guilt. Just long enough to recalibrate. Don't be ridiculous, she laughed. Just help make things smooth. Behind the scenes, Chloe is already overwhelmed. Of course Chloe was overwhelmed. Being adored takes stamina. 7 years ago, I walked out of that same house with a suitcase half-zipped and a future no one believed I had. I never looked back. Not even once. And in 7 years, no one called. Not on my birthday, not when I launched my company, not even when I showed up in Forbes. Until today. I caught my own reflection in the window, phone pressed to my ear, spine straight as the skyline behind me. The woman in the glass didn't look like a helper. She looked like someone who hired them. Sure, I said, tone dipped in honey laced with frost. Behind the scenes, just like old times. I ended the call before her relief turned into another request. Across the room, Talia closed her tablet with a soft click and looked up, eyes sharp as always. You're not seriously going back there to fold napkins and arrange lilies, right? I sat down, pulling my jacket tight around my waist like armor. Don't worry, I'm not going back to be seen. Talia tilted her head. Then why go at all? I'm going back to let them look, I said, my voice low, steady, and still not see. She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She just understood. Like always. We sat in silence, broken only by the soft hum of the city 30 stories below us. Then she stood, walked over to the sideboard and returned with a thick folder. The embossed logo glinted in the light. Ballora Events. And beneath it, official partner, Gray Bell Wedding. She laid it gently in front of me. They signed the full package, she murmured. I didn't answer, just uncapped my pen and signed the final page. I had orchestrated every vendor, every timeline, every glass and petal they would touch that day. Months ago, before the call, before they remembered I existed. And they still didn't know. Talia didn't say anything else. She just placed the file on the polished oak table, her hand lingering for a second as if to anchor me. They don't know who owns Ballora, she finally whispered. They will, I said. But not today. Talia placed a thick client file on the table. Logo reads, Ballora Events, official partner, Gray Bell Wedding. Isabella signs silently. Chloe smiled like a cover girl and spoke like a queen who'd ordered my execution long ago. The Gray estate hadn't changed much, still dripping in wealth, trying too hard not to show it. The marble floors gleamed beneath the scurry of florists and event staff, all moving as if choreographed for a commercial. Out front, white tents stretched across the manicured lawn like they belonged in a bridal magazine, while inside everyone looked just a touch too polished to be real. Isabella, Chloe called from across the grand hall, her heels clicking in rhythm with her smile. There you are. There was a pause in the room, just a small shift in the air. I caught Valerie's head turning, Douglas quickly looking away, a decorator stiffening with a clipboard midair. I was hoping you could help me sort out the guest list logistics, Chloe said, approaching with arms extended but no intention of hugging. You're good at Excel, right? The phrasing was perfect, sugary, public, and edged like a scalpel. I smiled. Of course, numbers are my specialty. Her brows lifted just slightly, not expecting compliance. Wonderful, she said, turning as if I were already following her, not worth a second glance. Behind me, I heard Talia exhale, soft and disapproving. The library had been transformed into the planning suite, complete with faux rustic boards labeled stationery, seating, and photo timeline. Valerie stood by the computer, rifling through digital files on a massive screen, frowning. These family photos won't do, she muttered. We need something clean, fresh, unified. One by one, images vanished from the screen. Click, delete, click, delete. I watched a photo from my high school graduation appear briefly. Me in cap and gown, Chloe beside me, braces still on her teeth, our father smiling behind us. Then, click, gone. Mom, I said. She didn't turn. We just want cohesion, dear. This is Chloe's moment. The photographer leaned into Chloe. I caught the whisper, low and venomous. That one doesn't exist in our memories. Talia's tablet was already up. She stood at the edge of the room, near the bay window, unnoticed as usual. But I saw the flick of her finger, the quiet click of a captured screenshot. Smart girl. I turned back to Chloe, who was now directing a florist on the exact angle of tulip placement around the flower arch. She was radiant, eyes shining, hair curled to perfection, dressed in a pale blue robe that probably cost more than the average month's rent. She moved like she owned the air around her. When I stepped a bit too close to the arch, just scanning placements, Chloe's voice rang out, sharp and fast. Please don't stand near the flower arch. Your presence ruins balance. The entire room stilled. The florist froze, eyes darting. I didn't flinch. Valerie chimed in, smoothing the edges. Just try not to be seen, sweetheart. It's Chloe's day. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I turned away and walked toward the window, the afternoon light pouring in so brightly that no one could quite look me in the face. Talia joined me a moment later, quiet as a breath. They think you're cracked porcelain, she said, her voice low. They're not wrong, I replied. But they forget what porcelain does when it shatters. She looked down at her screen, then leaned closer, lips nearly touching my ear. Guess who once applied for an internship at your company? She murmured. Nathan Bell. Wearing black slacks and a server's vest, I blended in so well they didn't even flinch, just like they always wanted. The lakeside resort looked like a Pinterest dream. Strings of fairy lights wove through the trees, casting soft golden halos on linen-draped tables. The lake shimmered beneath the early evening sky, reflecting just enough light to make everything look expensive and enchanted. And in the middle of it all, Chloe stood like a centerpiece in motion. Gold gown hugging her curves, glass of Prosecco in hand, laughing with the kind of grace you can only practice in front of a mirror. I moved quietly between the guests, handing out monogrammed programs, straightening centerpieces, my polished shoes silent on the garden stones. No one looked twice. Some smiled distantly, assuming I was hired help. Others ignored me altogether. Valerie passed by, her perfume trailing behind her like a memory you'd rather forget. She gestured to a pair of middle-aged guests in pastel. Oh, and that young woman there? She said, smiling sweetly. Just one of the freelance helpers we found last minute. Delightful, really. The woman glanced my way. I returned a professional nod, said nothing. Inside, something simmered. Minutes later, Chloe waved a champagne flute as she spotted me passing with an empty tray. Her voice lifted just enough to carry. We like to give chances to the less fortunate, she said, laughing to her crowd of bridesmaids. Laughter followed. I didn't stop. I didn't stumble. Instead, I rounded the far end of the patio and found Talia stationed near the DJ booth, one hand casually adjusting a volume knob, the other scrolling through cue lists on a screen. Her eyes flicked toward me, just once. Everything was in motion. And then I saw him, Nathan Bell. He stood near the drink station, black suit crisp, face half shadowed by the amber glow of an overhead lantern. He was speaking to one of the event sponsors, nodding politely, but his eyes kept drifting. To me. I picked up a folded cloth napkin, walked his way, and let it drop near his polished shoes. As I bent to retrieve it, I murmured without looking up. "We've met before. Ballora Group. Interview. 2 years ago." He stiffened, just a fraction, but I felt it in the air between us. I rose, tucked the napkin on the tray, and moved on before he could speak. Behind me, I could feel his stare trying to peel back the uniform, to remember the woman who once sat across from him in a glass office and asked him why he wanted to build something bigger than himself. Talia gave a small nod from across the space. The plan was ready. I ducked behind a white trellis lined with roses and exhaled slowly. The air was sweet with champagne and peonies, but it did nothing to calm the pounding in my chest. Chloe was at her peak tonight. Every laugh, every pose for the roaming photographers was a testament to her belief that the world rotated on her axis. I moved back toward the main tent, pretending to check table numbers. A technician wheeled in the projector rig for the slideshow Chloe insisted on previewing tonight. Family photos, childhood clips, testimonials from her friends. The screen flickered once, the file names loaded, and for a heartbeat, just one, an unfamiliar name appeared in the corner of the folder list. The Forgotten Grey.mp4. I stopped walking. No one else noticed. The file disappeared as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the slideshow reel Chloe had curated to perfection. I turned slightly, just enough to meet Talia's gaze from the booth. She nodded once, and I smiled. They erased me from their story, so I rewrote the ending. The wedding canopy shimmered beneath the afternoon sun, a masterpiece of ivory roses and gauzy fabric framing the picture-perfect scene. Chloe stood beneath it, luminous in white, every angle designed for the camera's love. Her smile was flawless, her makeup untouched by the heat, her bouquet a curated bundle of imported orchids. Guests murmured with admiration. Valerie hovered at the edge of the stage, orchestrating with a twitch of her fingers, while Douglas stood stiff beside the flower arrangements, looking as though he might dissolve into the polished wood floor. Nathan sat quietly in the second row, his eyes unreadable. From my place near the perimeter, clad in a fitted black suit, I watched the performance unfold. Chloe stepped up to the microphone, voice syrupy with rehearsed sincerity. "Family," she began, "is not just blood. It's loyalty, it's legacy. I'm proud to stand here today not just as a bride, but as the daughter of a name that has always stood for grace, tradition, and unity." Applause. She smiled wider. As the only daughter, the screen behind her flickered once. She paused, then flickered again. A glitch? A breeze? Then the logo faded into black, and a new file began to play. Title card, The Forgotten Grey. A beat of silence, then images. A childhood photo. 2 girls side by side, dressed identically, smiles wide and identical. Chloe and me, Isabella. Same hair, same eyes, same dimple on the left cheek. The crowd gasped. The slideshow continued. Photo after photo. Birthday cakes with 2 names, Christmas mornings, kindergarten graduation. Chloe's 5th grade art project labeled Me and My Sister. Then, a hospital scan, a document, a high-resolution birth certificate, 2 names listed, Chloe Ann Gray, Isabella Ann Gray. Valerie moved first, rushing toward the AV booth. Her face was frozen in horror, her heels clacking against the polished platform. But she was too late. The next slide. A snapshot of the family computer desktop, just hours ago. Deleted photo folders, labels like Edit for Slideshow. A red trash bin, full of discarded memories. Gasps erupted. Talia stood motionless behind the booth, eyes forward, one hand resting lightly on the laptop. A quiet sentinel. I stepped forward. No microphone. No need. "My name," I said, "is Isabella Gray, Chloe's twin, the one they didn't want you to see." The audience turned as one, a ripple of stunned silence rolling across the white chairs and perfectly combed lawn. Valerie's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I kept walking. "They told me I was too much," I said. "Too intense, too different. So they erased me, pretended I never existed, said I wouldn't fit into the future they wanted." Behind me, the screen kept playing. Yearbook quotes with two identical faces blurred out in one. College applications listing only Chloe's name. An article, "Ballora Group hires youngest strategy head ever." No byline, no mention of family. Chloe dropped her bouquet. "This is my day," she screamed, voice cracking. "This is my day." I stopped at the edge of the platform, hands at my sides. "And it's your reckoning," I said. Valerie finally reached the AV booth, breathless, but the damage was done. The slideshow had looped, the evidence now etched into the minds of everyone present. Nathan rose slowly, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief. He stared at me, something turning behind his eyes. "You're Ballora?" he said, not quite a question. I nodded. Every invoice, every contract, every choice about the wine pairings and the napkin folds. I paid for your perfect illusion. The guests were no longer watching Chloe. They were watching me. Nathan stepped back from his chair. Chloe's head snapped around. "Where are you going?" she demanded. He didn't answer. He just kept walking, down the aisle and away from the stage, away from the image Chloe had so carefully built. She reached after him, but her hand fell on air. The wedding didn't end with a kiss. It ended with the groom walking into a waiting Uber, alone. The silence of Saturday morning in my penthouse felt surgical. Clean, clinical, and unbothered by the wreckage still smoldering at the Gray estate. The early sun reflected off the steel skyline, filtering into the glass walls and bouncing off the white marble counters. Everything here was designed for solitude and control. I padded barefoot across the floor, coffee in hand, robe tied neatly. My phone buzzed like a wounded bird. Chloe's Instagram post was already up. A soft focus image of her in her wedding dress, eyes slightly teary but jaw defiant. The caption bled with manipulation. "Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those who share your blood." I never imagined the joy of my wedding would be tainted by betrayal. I am heartbroken, but I will rise. I always do. Family. First. Truth will win. I let the screen dim. Valerie, however, was far less polished. Her messages came in a burst of green bubbles. Valerie Gray. "How dare you ambush us like that? This is unforgivable. Chloe is devastated. You've ruined everything. Again. If you think this gets you back in, think again. You wanted revenge. I hope it feels cold. We protected you, Isabella. We always protected you." I read each message slowly, like reviewing evidence at a trial I didn't attend. Talia's message pinged in next. "Uploading full receipts now. Timestamp documents, school records, birthday photos, deleted hard drive folders. I'm not subtle anymore." A few seconds later, the internet woke up. On Twitter, @TheRealSleuth. Wait, Chloe Gray lied about being an only child for years? And erased her twin from wedding memories? This is real? Mama says truth. Isabella Gray deserves a damn medal for keeping it that classy. I'd have burned the estate down. Weddings, unfiltered? Ballora Group CEO being the actual ghost in the family slideshow. I'm screaming. I turned on the TV. Every major outlet was replaying clips from the wedding. In one freeze frame, Chloe's mouth was still open mid-scream. In another, Nathan was already walking down the aisle toward the exit. There was no glamour filter for chaos. My phone buzzed again. This time, Nathan. "You didn't just expose her. You freed me too. I stared at his message, drafted a reply. You deserve better than that circus. Deleted it. Another. You were never the problem. They were. Deleted that too. Instead, I closed the app and set the phone face down. Talia called. Her voice was calm, collected. The news picked up your speech. You're on 3 trending pages. Interview requests are coming in from Forbes, Vox, and even The View. Your name's not just gray anymore. It's gravity. I exhaled slowly, staring out at the skyline. Let the truth travel, I said. I've got nothing to chase anymore. The words felt final, but weightless. The elevator dinged. I wasn't expecting anyone. Then the call from the lobby came through on the penthouse line. A clipped voice, clearly uncomfortable. Ms. Gray, there's a woman here. She says she's your mother. Claims it's urgent. I stood still, pulse a dull echo in my ears. For a moment, I said nothing. Then, tell her I'll be down in 15. But I didn't move. Not yet. I stood there in my quiet kingdom, wondering what a queen is supposed to wear when the ghost of her past shows up uninvited. For years, I wanted one of them to say, I see you. I stopped needing it. And that's when the world started watching. The morning sunlight bled gold across the rooftop boardroom of Ballora Group, 7 floors above the noise, the headlines, the memories. A glass wall framed the skyline like a painting. Inside, silence held the weight of anticipation. Executives in dark suits sat in crisp rows, but all eyes were on me. I stood at the head of the table, not behind it, not beside it, at the front. A week had passed since the wedding. A week since I stood on sacred family ground wearing shadows like armor. Now I stood in the light. The large monitor behind me glowed with the title slide, Project Origin, From Silence to Strength. My voice was clear, not loud, but every syllable landed like a gavel. There are women, brilliant, capable, invisible, who've been told they don't belong, that they're too much, or not enough, or inconvenient. This foundation is for them, for us. A beat of silence. Then a quiet rustle of shifting bodies, the click of pens, nods. I glanced toward Talia. She tapped her tablet, and a new slide filled the screen. Real-time numbers. Following last week's unprecedented public moment, she said with a wry smile, donations surged 430%. Engagement on social channels increased tenfold. And messages, thousands, some as short as 2 words. Thank you. I let those words linger. Chloe's name had already been scrubbed from the joint brand deals she once paraded on morning talk shows. The PR firms retreated. One by one, sponsors posted vague statements about values alignment and organizational restructuring. Valerie had gone silent. Her number no longer appeared in my contact list. Douglas remained a ghost. Fitting. The world no longer asked why I disappeared. They asked how I survived. A soft ping. I glanced down at the corner of the screen. A final email had arrived just minutes ago. From Nathan. Subject, perspective. Isabella, thanks to you, I saw how fake it all was. The poses, the platitudes. You didn't just walk out of the narrative, you rewrote it. I hope to one day work beside you. For real this time. As equals. I closed the window. No reply necessary. Because this wasn't about love. It wasn't even about rage. This was about the quiet reclamation of space. Later, when the meeting dispersed and the room emptied of polished power suits and polished smiles, I remained. Alone. I walked to the private washroom at the edge of the rooftop floor. Not out of habit, but because there was a mirror inside. A tall one. Brutal in its honesty. I stood before it. Looked. No jewelry. No makeup. Just me. Eyes steady, jaw relaxed. You are enough, I whispered. You were always enough. No applause. No soundtrack. Just the woman who built an empire standing in front of her reflection without flinching. Back in the boardroom, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I was erased too. I saw your story. Can we talk? Rebecca Gray. I didn't move for a moment, just stared at the name. Not Chloe, not Valerie, not another blow from the past, but a door I never knew existed. Somewhere beyond the timeline I thought I'd buried. There was someone else. I slipped the phone into my pocket, then walked to the boardroom doors and pulled them closed behind me. Let the world come. I'm ready. She walked away not with applause, but with clarity, leaving behind the stage where she was once cast as invisible. The very silence that tried to erase her name became the echo chamber for her truth. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. Like, share, subscribe, and leave your thoughts about this story in the comments. Type 1 if you've ever felt the same.